Welcome to Newton Economics and the Externality Task Force. I'm Corey Newton, and today we're going to talk about asymmetric information. Below me, if you want to make this experience interactive, we have an asymmetric information video companion that I asked if you want to participate in the interactive nature of this, go ahead and right-click, open a new tab, either print it, whatever's easier for you. We also have information on your right. That is information I sent to the town supervisor, town of Warsing supervisor and town board, refuting this report. This is a perfect example of asymmetric information that they're using against us, trying to say Milli Vanilli, blame it on the rain story is due to the problems instead of the tunneling. Asymmetric information also appears above me in the Newton Economics Nuclear, Biological, and Chemical Contamination Report that I produced and released. Asymmetric information also is available in the link beneath that, the USGS study, specifically these 8 pages of water chemistry results indicating elevated levels of nuclear, biological, and chemical contamination. So that's asymmetric information. So while you go ahead, whatever you want to do, print out this 6-page PDF interactive sheet. I'm going to define and describe asymmetric information right out of the microeconomics textbook to make sure, you know, I'm not out over here talking crazy. This is actual economic textbook concepts. So asymmetric information. One side of the market has better information about the product than does the other side. So in this case, with the DEP dealing with everybody else, asymmetric information, 8 pages of water chemistry results indicating elevated levels of nuclear, biological, and chemical contamination. Hidden characteristics. One side of the market knows more than the other side about product characteristics that are important to the other side. 8 pages of water chemistry results indicating elevated levels of nuclear, biological, and chemical contamination. Adverse selection. Those on the informed side of the market self-select in a way that harms those on the uninformed side of the market. 8 pages of water chemistry results indicating elevated levels of nuclear, biological, and chemical contamination 1 mile up the road from my house. Hidden actions. One side of an economic relationship can do something that the other side cannot observe. Thankfully, I have observed the 8 pages of water chemistry results indicating elevated levels of nuclear, biological, and chemical contamination 1 mile up the road. And finally, the principal-agent problem. The agent's objectives differ from those of the principals, and one side can pursue hidden actions. 8 pages of water chemistry results indicating elevated levels of nuclear, biological, and chemical contamination. So the best place where you can get examples of asymmetric information is right out of the newspaper. And that's what the PDF attachment is. Hopefully you have it printed out or you're following along in a different tab. I've got these numbers so we can go through them, we can keep track, and I'm just going to give you some quick examples, and then we're going to close this thing up. Number 1, also required and causing some consternation at last week's meeting, are several legal agreements all participating homeowners must sign. A grant agreement, a contract between the town and property owner approving the expenditure of a specified amount of money for an approved scope of work, the construction agreement, a contract between the property owner and the contractor, and a release. Number 2, the signing of the release is a trade-off. Trade-off. Economic flags went up when I was at this meeting. I heard trade-off again and again and again that night. I'm going to touch on that briefly. The signing of a release is a trade-off, Blower said, relinquishing homeowners' right to bring any future claims against the City of New York or the town of Warsing. Now let's just drop into this trade-off quickly. Trade-off is an economic term. It set up red flags in my mind because it has to do with opportunity cost. And let me explain that quickly. Opportunity cost. The value of the best alternative foregone when an item or activity is chosen. And that's why he's talking about trade-offs. So is this homeowner improvement program is getting your stuff improved and signing a release from future liability for New York City and town of Warsaw worth to pursue, while the tunnel leak isn't going to be fixed until 2021. Okay, so they can improve your property, it can deteriorate from the leaking tunnel, and you can't do anything about it. See, this is why these people at the meeting were so awesome, and they just gave them hell all night. And they weren't satisfied. And satisfaction is another economic term that Mick Jagger has been running around the globe for 40 years screaming and singing and yelling about, because he studied at the London School of Economics for several semesters before he dropped out and joined the Stones. And let's talk about what satisfaction is, another economic term. Utility analysis. Utility is a sense of pleasure or satisfaction that comes from consumption. So the people at the meeting were not satisfied with this deal, this release signing, any of it. And we'll see that in number 3. We'll see how smart the people of Warsing really are, and they pressed these people hard all night at this meeting. We understand that all the gentlemen on the panel from the various agencies are all working for our benefit. We do not think you're the bad guys, one person said. But the whole aspect of us signing off on any future problems that could arise troubles us, said one resident, echoing long-held fears by many in the region of the city and its watershed holdings and regulations. What about sinkholes? What if the wells run dry when the aqueduct is repaired? What if the leak has caused contamination to wells, spiking E. coli cases or cancer? Others asked. See, these people are on the ball. These people are smart here. And these city slickers, these idiots are going to come in here trying to use asymmetric information against us. Come on. So number 4, I can't speak for the city, but I would think they would want the issue to end with an individual home. Yeah, why? Because they have asymmetric information indicating elevated levels of nuclear, biological, and chemical contamination. Here we go. Since 2007, we've come forward with ultraviolet systems and sump pumps for people before we had any scientific information about the leak, added DEP Representative Iris Stern. We entered into a buyout program in partnership with Ulster County, where 35 homes so far have been purchased and 4 remain. We've also put money on the table now to fix people's homes and also to supply a public water system for the town. We've been working with the town. The tunnel is not going anywhere. We have plans to repair it, and those plans are on schedule. The monitoring system will stay there. We feel that we've demonstrated a commitment to dealing with the infrastructure that goes through your town. We've put a lot of resources into this so far, and we don't plan on going anywhere. Good, you guys need to stick around. Number 6, Adam Bosch echoed much of what Stern discussed at the meeting, that the tunnel is causing just a fraction of the water issues residents are facing, with a high groundwater table and increased rainfall serving as more significant culprits. Really? That's why I released the documents on the right and I sent them to the town board, because they're using, not the town board, they're good people, and I want to give them as much ammunition as they can to fight against this asymmetric information, bogus, milli-vanilli, blame it on the rain report produced by DEP. Asymmetric information will be used against us. Town board are good people. I've had slight disagreements with them on other economic issues, but I'm trying to help them as much as I can so they can help the residents of Warsing, because DEP, what they're trying to do here and what they're trying to milli-vanilli, blame it on a rain theory is absolutely out of control. So I sent it to them last week. You're more than welcome to look at it. I've completely refuted that because it's not even worth the paper it's printed on. Number 7, the Delaware Aqueduct is scheduled to fully be repaired, a massive job that includes much larger fixes to south and east of Warsing, and the construction of a diversion tunnel by 2021. What is it, 2014? Last time I checked, it was May, end of May 2014. So you get your stuff repaired, the thing's going to be leaking in 2021, and in order to get it repaired, you got to sign a release. That's it? Please. All right, off to the next page in the document, number 8. This is Mike Wendell, who turned me on to this whole thing. If I do not sign that $16,500 release for perpetuity, They will financially bankrupt me. It's come down to the wire, and I have to sell the house for financial reasons, and the only way they will accept is if I release New York City from liability in the future for health or property damage. When I see Love Canal got $129 million for their residents, I think selling your liability for $16,500 does not compare real well. Asymmetric information. 8 pages of water chemistry tables indicating elevated levels of nuclear, biological, and chemical contamination. That's why it's a release. Number 10 is starred because it gets refuted in the next couple of pages. So remember, this is a huge one. County officials declined to discuss Wendell's statements, but said the city buyout program does not include a mandatory liability waiver. Okay, we'll check that fact in the next couple minutes here. Art Snyder, here's listen to this guy. Of everyone that was eligible and indicated a desire to sell their home, we've been able to satisfy every one of them. Not everybody that sent in an application was eligible, and not everyone that we have offered to purchase their homes has followed through. Some haven't been happy with the price they were offered, although we use the same appraiser for every single home, so that there was a level of consistency. 12 and 13, residents in Warson complained for more than 10 years that leaks in the Delaware Aqueduct were raising problems in their homes and on their properties, but it took until 2010 for city officials to admit a possible connection between the leaks and the local flood damage. U.S. Geological Survey report in 2012 stated leaks from the aqueduct have raised the water table, causing water to come through basements, get into septic systems, and create sinkholes. And this report, this asymmetric information report, was designed to cover up the other report, the green report, beneath the NBC contamination report, USGS 2012 5144. The one that contains these water tables indicating elevated levels of nuclear, biological, and chemical contamination. Number 14, this is what I'm talking about with the releases. It gets blown apart. Number 10, and I start. As part of the proposed buyout plan, which still must be approved by county legislature, city officials are seeking to limit the number of lawsuits they could face. The press release states the plan includes an incentive payment of 10% of a home's purchase price in return for a release of city liability. Okay, so it's not technically a release. It's an incentive payment to sign a release. So you don't have to sign a release, but you have to accept the incentive payment and then sign a release. Asymmetric information. And number 15, the residents realize they are just collateral damage in a war. And it's an information war. It's a full-blown information war. It's a full-blown asymmetric information war. I don't know if you can, here it is. Coping with asymmetric information. There are ways of reducing the consequences of asymmetric information. An incentive structure or an information revealing system can be developed to reduce the problems associated with lopsided availability of information. And that is why Newton Economics has established an externality task force, because we are an information revealing system designed to reduce the problems associated with the lopsided availability of information. And we will continue to release information and continue to release information to offset this asymmetric information putting out by the DEP being used against the residents up the road who are suffering from an externality of a leaking tunnel and a contamination aggravated by the leaking tunnel and all this asymmetric information. And that's what we're doing here at the Externality Task Force. All right, everybody knows me. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not an environmental whistleblower. I'm not a community organizer. And I'm not a political activist. I'm just an economist who lives down the road analyzing the externality of the tunnel leak and the contamination and the asymmetric information associated with it in an economic manner. Everyone have a great Memorial Day. Take 5 minutes to remember the warriors of this country whose lives were taken destroying the enemies of the United States, so we can have our freedoms and we can yell about externalities and asymmetric information on the internet. Have a great weekend. Stay tuned. More is coming.